Good evening. My name is Elise Keiffer. I'm a sophomore in the Nonprofit Leadership Studies program. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the second evening of the second annual Philanthropy Week celebration, hosted by the Nonprofit Research Center, the Nonprofit Leadership Studies program, the Department of Organizational Communication and Leadership, the Arthur J. Bauernfein College of Business, and Murray State University. Philanthropy Week is a celebration of generosity, philanthropy, and civic engagement. Each year, during the Nonprofit Leadership Studies course, Grants, Giving, and Philanthropy, students work together to research the local nonprofit sector, create a grant application, invite organizations to apply, and finally, grant funds to a local nonprofit organization. This unique hands-on learning opportunity is made possible by the Murray State University Giving Back Endowment. Tonight, Dr. Elise Keiffer will interview students from the Nonprofit Leadership Studies program about their experiences participating in this grant-making process.
Hello, welcome to Murray State University Nonprofit Leadership Studies Philanthropy Week. I am Dr. Elise Keiffer. I am the Program Director of Nonprofit Leadership Studies. And tonight we're going to be talking to some students who have participated in a philanthropic initiative that we do every year through one of our courses. First, before we get started, I'd like to introduce them all to you. So, Alyssa, will you go first?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Alyssa Keiffer. I'm a nonprofit leadership major with a minor in business administration, and I am a sophomore.
Mike Green, major is nonprofit leadership studies, minor is unmanned aerial systems, and I'm a senior graduating at the end of the semester.
Yay!
Hi, my name is Hadley Stevens, and I'm a nonprofit leadership studies major and a special ed minor. I'm also a senior.
Yay! Would you just each also tell me what your particular interest in the nonprofit sector is, if you know what it is?
Yeah, I really like working with people who are more at the disadvantaged, so Habitat for Humanity. I really like working with like soup kitchens and things like that.
Excellent.
Disaster response, I do a lot of work with Volunteer Fire Department, Rescue Squad, and Team Rubicon, a nonprofit organization.
Excellent.
I would say my area of interest are people with disabilities. I work with a nonprofit back home, and I do a lot of nonprofit work throughout my summers with those groups.
And you are running a nonprofit.
And I'm running a nonprofit, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So tonight we're specifically going to talk about the Giving Back Endowment. This is an initiative started by Patricia and Dr. Bob Long. They donated funds to start the program in 2008 with, I'm going to read this to make sure I get it correct, the vision to advance the understanding and application of the principles of altruism, generosity, caring, and service to others among Murray State University students and faculty, as well as the Murray-Callaway County community. The central goal is to provide students with an innovative educational experience that helps prepare them to be active, educated, community-minded citizens. And this initiative was started by Dr. Long and Patricia, and then also contributed by other community members, faculty, and staff of the university. And this endowment has enabled two separate philanthropic initiatives. One of them is the Faculty Innovation Award, which is granted every year to a couple of faculty members who have innovative ideas that they want to implement in their classrooms, but they need funding to do so. And that really empowers our faculty to be creative in their classroom and then also to get out into the community with their classroom activities. The other activity that's funded by the endowment is the Student Initiative. And this initiative is incorporated into a nonprofit leadership studies course called Grantmaking, and Philanthropy. And in that class, the students research the community, identify organizations, and select an organization to receive funding. And so that's what we're going to talk to the students about today, is about their experience participating in this. So Alyssa and Mike were in this course just this past fall, 2021. Hadley, you were in this course in 2020, I believe, yes?
Fall of 2020.
Okay, so we have two different experiences with two different organizations funded and also two different instructors. So we'll see some of the differences. So first, I'd just like to ask each of you to answer an overview of the process from your perspective. What was it like doing this grant making process?
Okay, it was a lot of fun, number one, because we were also targeting the organizations that really we felt involved with or have had like a lot of research done and so forth. And so we really found those and really liked it. And then we kind of all came together, talked about the ones that we liked, kind of fought over them a little bit about which one we really enjoyed. And then we were able to write up and do our own like grant for them, as well as like getting to know them better, so that they could, better understand what we're doing for them and if they really wanted to get involved with it.
Right, so in the class you actually created the grant application and then invited certain organizations to apply, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. What about you, Mike?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun going out and looking and seeing how many nonprofits are actually in the community around here that deal with youth like that. So I thought it was a good learning opportunity, something different. You never really get a chance to hand out real cash. So that was the fun part. It was real money that helped a real organization.
Absolutely. So you both mentioned youth. Why did it focus on youth?
A lot of Murray State area has a lot of focus on the youth, just because we are tend to be, a more family-driven area. But also we did work with LBL and their programs, but their program also came back to youth as well. So it just kind of focused on that during our research. I'm sure Hadley's was a lot different, but ours tend to be more on that.
Well, and it's one of the requirements of the endowment also,
Yes.
isn't it? That it has to be a youth-focused organization. Great. And so your overview of the experience.
Yeah, so my overview of the experience was a little different because it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. So that was really fun. We did have a great experience though. Like you said, it was a different instructor, and so we started our whole course with getting an understanding of our own personal philanthropic endeavors throughout our lives, and then that helped us do the application and find different organizations, and that really helped inform me of the interest in the process of the grant writing experience.
Yeah. Was there a part of the experience that was especially frustrating or challenging for any of you?
I think for us, it was probably when we had to cut organizations out. That was probably the hardest part. Because some of the organizations, we really wanted to get the grant, but they just didn't meet the requirements. It was Needline was the one?
Yeah, Needline was one. And then also we had an organization who did not want to apply for the grant, even though we were strongly wanting them to. But they just said they didn't have the time and they were not interested. And so that was kind of disheartening a little bit, because we really wanted them to have it, or at least try for it, but they just didn't have the time.
Which was a great lesson into the sector itself as to how far individuals are stretched when they're working in an organization.
Yeah, I agree. I think the most challenging part or disheartening was when you would see an organization that you really liked and they met the requirements and they applied, but maybe their application wasn't as strong as other people, and you're but you saw the potential in the organization. And so that was really interesting to see everybody's different views and their different understanding of the endowment, because organizations that I thought were great and we needed to give a chance, someone else would have a different opinion. And so that was really the toughest part for me, but I think the most growing part as well.
As the instructor, that was one of the most gratifying things for me, was to see how the class interacted with. I know it felt intimidating that you're having to sometimes challenge your peers and make your case, but it was done with respect. And I left that particular class that we all went in with a little bit of nerves, and then we left, and I felt that it had just been so successful, and I felt really good about that. So it's challenging, but it's rewarding when it's done. Were there any parts, you kind of mentioned this, Alyssa, were there parts that were very disappointing to you?
Yeah, I think mainly just that nonprofit just didn't have the time to do it. I know one of our other classmates, Luke, really wanted them to have it, and so he really tried to push it, and they just unfortunately did not have the time, and they wanted it to go to someone else, and so that's understandable, but also that was just the biggest disheartening part for me.
Yeah.
I think along that lines is you wanted organizations to apply, but they didn't, and I don't think they did enough time to do their research on it to see that there wasn't a lot of work involved in doing it. So that was kind of the thing that was disappointing, is that it was just a little bit of work to put in on their end.
Yeah.
I think I agree with both of them. I think that was probably the hardest part.
Did your class have any organizations that were invited to apply that did not submit an application?
Maybe one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one out of that group, and then from those, a couple didn't meet the requirements, and so they had to be, unfortunately, like
Eliminated.
But yeah.
Yeah. So on a happier note, was there anything particularly inspiring about the process for you?
It was really cool to see like everyone's thoughts about it. So like all of the different, we sent out the same grant to everyone, grant application to everyone, and everyone came back with something different. It was all very broad, and so that was kind of hard too also to like narrow it down, because everyone had really good ideas for their organization. It was just, which one do we think would really take hold and really affect our community the most?
I think probably the funnest part was at the end handing out the giant check.
Yeah.
Did you guys have a giant check for your
Yes.
class?
Yes,
Okay.
they got to come.
Yeah, that was the best part I enjoyed, because you get to meet the organization face to face.
Yeah. Which in some semesters, probably for none of you, in some semesters there is more of that interaction with the organization throughout the semester, but because of COVID restrictions, that was our big moment. It was when we actually got to give them the money. We hadn't really gotten to interact prior to that. So that made it, I think, even more potent that day. What about you? Was anything particularly inspiring?
I think the most inspiring thing for me comes from a personal standpoint. That was my first ever nonprofit class. And so I came here as a junior, and so I came in like being a fish out of water, and I was like, oh no, like I'm in this grant writing class. I don't even know what grant writing means. And I just really gained a lot of confidence throughout that whole process. And I think from the first day of class to the last day of class, when we handed out that check, it was really validating for me that I was in the right program and like I was able to do this. And I just need to like have more confidence in myself. So
I'll give you a break going first. Hadley, what organizations or organization received funding from your class? Tell us about the project.
Yes, so the Murray Art Guild is who we decided to grant the funding to, and we were just really impressed throughout their whole process. They were just very diligent with their application, and we talked a lot about like little things like that make a big difference, like spelling errors, grammatical errors, and they just had like none of that. And then another thing, you had mentioned, like I run my own nonprofit, so now this makes more sense to me. But the things that they gave in terms of like marketing, so like a breakdown of their funding, a breakdown of like their funders and their programs, and like an aesthetic and pleasing way, an easy way to look through, that just made a big difference. And in the end, I was really thrilled to grant them that money.
Yeah. And your class, what organization did you choose and what program?
We chose LBL Friends of Land Between the Lakes, and was it for storage?
It was for, they were planning on doing a new exhibit where it was going to focus on the Trail of Tears in that area.
Yes.
Display cases for the Trail of Tears.
Yes.
Yes, to incorporate that into their programming. And I think the class as a whole just felt that the impact and the importance of that was vast. They have so many people come through there. And I believe it's specifically at the home place at Land Between the Lakes. So in your class, was it unanimous? Mike, you go first. Or was there debate?
Oh no, there was a lot of heated debate. It wasn't unanimous at all. I think it finally came down to what they wanted to do with it. Is what they were doing the Trail of Tears, stuff like that. That was kind of what put them over the top, was the message they were conveying with that and the impact it would have on the community, because there really isn't anything like that in this entire area that much. So
Yeah. Anything to add?
And especially because we knew how many people do come to LBL, especially the home place, like just like how many buses of students just come in every year to visit from Tennessee and Kentucky. So we knew that it was going to affect more than just this area. And so we thought that that would also, kind of pushed it over the edge.
Broad impact.
Yes.
And in your class, was it unanimous or was there
No.
debate?
No, really not. I think if it was unanimous, I would have been very surprised. There was a lot of debate just because all the organizations that we came down to have such a great mission that impact the community, and so it was really hard to decide. But like I said, I think it just came down to quality and like their attention to detail. So.
I remember you've mentioned attention to detail a couple of times. I remember one individual in your class that especially bothered, that just was very, very bothered by those formatting errors and grammatical errors, just because of the attention that it showed that maybe something was rushed through, and that felt a little bit disappointing. So what did you learn? Mike, you go first this time.
What did I learn? I learned that doing the grant writing process is a lot more involved than when I thought when I just first going into it. And I learned a lot about the community doing research and trying to find an organization to seek out for the grant. So yeah, those two things. The process is long and involved, and there's a lot of interesting organizations in and around Murray.
Alyssa?
I really, to touch on like the other part of the class, like whenever we were doing research into other grants that are like just broadly, it's kind of crazy how broad they can be and how like much little and how much time it can take. It was just really interesting to see like how much people really put into their grant writing process and how much people give back in that. And so like how much detail you need to put into it and how much work it can be.
In our class, we had a lot of guest speakers with local organizations in and throughout Murray, and just talking about either their organization or their philanthropic experience. And I think I learned the most from that, just seeing how rich this community is in the philanthropic sector and the effects of it. I think Murray's better for its philanthropic involvement, and that was just really like a great thing to see, and I was really encouraged by that.
So I think you mentioned this, Mike, that one of the things that was important to you was that there was real money. You were actually granting funds. This wasn't a class project that was hypothetical or theoretical. So I'd like you to each just comment on what the power of that aspect. So the Giving Back Endowment has enabled that to be a real life activity. You are funding real money to real organizations, helping real youth in this case. So how do you think that changed your experience, the fact that it was real, authentic?
It definitely makes you look at it in a different light. I mean, so you're actually handing out money, and you kind of step back and think about, like, since you're looking at these organizations and how small they are, like $1,000 has a huge impact on an organization like Needline or Playhouse in the Park or the MAG. So I mean, being able to help their programming and further their missions, it's kind of empowering, I guess.
It means a lot because I feel like in some classes, sometimes it can get really overwhelming with your other classes, so you don't put as much attention to it. And so having that real money, it makes you feel more like you need to get it right. Like you need to make the right choice. Who needs this money the most, and like how can we better our community, because this is real $1,000 that we are giving out, and that can really affect someone.
Yeah, I agree with Alyssa. I think it makes you take it very seriously, and not that like any of us don't take our classes seriously, but I think like at least for me, like I would go to class throughout the day, and then like I kind of felt like I was like going into a job, and I was like, I need to be prepared, I need to be, and I think it's like really important, because that's what you're gonna take when you leave here at Murray State. You might not remember every single paper you write, but like these real life experiences, they hold a lot of weight, they hold a lot of importance to your future.
I think as an instructor also, I'm speculating because this was real, but I think that when you had those moments of debate and discussion and conversation about the different organizations, I think there was an overall happier feeling whenever consensus was reached and an organization was chosen. You knew you were still helping someone. So there wasn't as much of a feeling of defeat that yours didn't get picked. Well, you were still helping someone. And so everyone was able to still leave feeling that they knew that they were doing a good thing. They were helping an organization that was helping people in the community. Any final thoughts that any of you want to share about the experience?
It was amazing.
I really enjoyed it.
I was trying to say, it was one of the better classes I've had here at Murray State. So I personally enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it's just a really unique experience that Murray State offers. it's students, and I'm really glad that I got to be a part of it. So.
You know, I have 3 degrees from 3 universities, and I never was able to participate in something like this that was real world impact giving money. So it really is a very unique experience, and it was exciting for me to be able to facilitate it and to be a part of it. So I think that concludes our conversation. Thank you everyone for watching about the Giving Back Endowment, and especially our student initiative, and enjoy the rest of Philanthropy Week at Murray State University.